What if the real danger isn't the villain in the shadows, but the smiling face right beside you? Some people don't hurt with weapons. They hurt with charm, lies, and silent control. And most terrifying, you often don't realize it until it's too late. They won't wear a mask, they won't raise their voice, but their presence quietly poisons your peace. Evil isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers through manipulation, deceit, and hollow praise. Today, we uncover the subtle signs you must never ignore. You've felt it, the unease around someone who drains you, controls you, and yet claims to care. If your instincts ever screamed, something's wrong, but you couldn't explain why, this video will give you the clarity you've been searching for. Have you ever met someone who doesn't need to say a word to unsettle your soul? Just being near them leaves you emotionally exhausted, your peace unraveling, and your confidence quietly dismantled. They smile, they nod, they blend in. But somehow, something always feels off. We like to believe that evil is loud, monstrous, obvious, impossible to miss. But in truth, evil is often quiet, strategic, and disturbingly familiar. It doesn't wear horns or wave a pitchfork. It might wear a suit, bring you coffee, or even call you friend. And while it doesn't arrive with a warning sign, it always leaves behind the same wreckage: confusion, anxiety, self-doubt, and broken trust. What makes it even more dangerous is how invisibly it moves. It manipulates under the guise of care. It controls while pretending to guide. It damages while smiling sweetly. But here's the good news. You don't need to be a mind reader or a detective to protect yourself. You just need clarity, awareness, and the courage to trust what your intuition already knows. The ancient Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, saw this kind of hidden malice long before our time. They didn't just warn against external enemies, they taught us how to recognize those who chip away at our integrity, one quiet gesture at a time. Their wisdom helps us see what the eyes often miss. Take, for example, my friend Maya. She used to work closely with someone who always seemed generous, offering help, sharing resources, even defending her in meetings. But over time, Maya noticed she was constantly second-guessing herself. Her ideas were quietly redirected, her failures magnified, and her confidence gone. That's when she realized it wasn't kindness. It was control, and Maya's not alone. Stories like hers are everywhere, and today we'll explore them together. In this video, I'll walk you through 10 unmistakable signs that you may be dealing with someone who doesn't have your best interests at heart, someone whose behavior is toxic, even if their words seem sweet. These insights aren't just for awareness, they're tools for survival. They'll help you protect your peace, reclaim your energy, and move through the world with more clarity and confidence. Are you ready? Let's begin. First, a mask of charm. Epictetus once offered a timeless warning. Appearances, no matter how dazzling, often hide the truth beneath. And he was right. Some people wear charm like a costume, perfectly tailored, effortlessly convincing, and deeply disarming. Have you ever met someone whose presence felt almost cinematic? Their radiant smile, their comforting voice, the way they made you feel seen, maybe even cherished. At first, it felt magical, like a dream you never wanted to wake up from. But then something quiet inside you stirred, a whisper of doubt, a gut instinct. And when you paused long enough to look beneath the performance, you saw it. Not warmth, not sincerity, but a hollow space where authenticity should have lived. You see, when used with pure intentions, charm is beautiful. It creates connection, builds trust, and softens even the hardest hearts. But in the hands of someone with darker motives, charm becomes a sharpened blade. It lures you in, lowers your guard, and blinds you to the truth. They know how to capture your heart, soothe your fears, and present themselves as the friend you've always needed, the lover you've longed for, or the mentor you thought you could finally trust. But like a well-polished mask, their charm is only surface deep. Beneath it hides manipulation, selfishness, and deceit. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." These people don't just wear masks, they become them. Their every word is carefully chosen, their compliments perfectly timed, their kindness just convincing enough to make you question your own doubts. I remember a man named Alex. He could walk into any room and win it over in minutes. He complimented generously, laughed at just the right volume, and seemed to have a gift for making people feel like they mattered. I once watched him comfort a coworker who was on the verge of tears, and I admired him for it. But over time I noticed a pattern. The same people he praised today, he mocked behind closed doors tomorrow. Every compliment came with an expiration date, every gesture, an agenda. When someone had nothing left to offer, Alex moved on like they never existed. This is the chilling brilliance of the charmer. Their charm isn't kindness, it's currency. And when it runs out, so does their interest. So how do you protect yourself? Pay attention to your body's quiet alerts, that sense of being dazzled but slightly uneasy. Trust it. Actions, not words, are the true portrait of character. How do they treat the janitor, the waitress, the person who holds no power? That's the truth beneath the mask. Stoic philosophy reminds us, truth needs no decoration. Real kindness doesn't require performance. It exists naturally, like sunlight. It doesn't shift with who's watching, and it doesn't disappear when there's nothing to gain. So, look deeper, past the smiles, beyond the praise. True goodness doesn't hide. It stands firm in its honesty, even when no one applauds. Second, when lies become a way of life. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nothing should be done without purpose, and nothing should be said if it isn't true." Yet for those who walk the darker path, truth is not a guide, it is an obstacle. Malicious individuals do not lie out of ignorance or accident. They lie with intention, precision, and frightening ease. For them, deceit isn't just a tactic, it's a lifestyle. A strategy refined through years of manipulation. Their lies aren't clumsy or careless. No, they're woven with care, like a spider spinning a flawless web, not for beauty, but for entrapment. These individuals lie to gain power, to dodge blame, to shape your world into one where they are the hero and you, the fool. This is the hallmark of the conscienceless liar. They don't just bend reality, they build a new one and drag you into it. They gaslight, deflect, and manipulate until your own memories become cloudy. You begin to question what you saw, what you felt, what you know. But here's the truth they can never fully smother. Lies are fragile. They demand upkeep, constant patches, more lies to cover old ones. Truth, on the other hand, stands strong, needing no defense, no rehearsal. It simply is. To protect yourself, pay close attention. Watch for shifting stories, for words that don't match behavior. Stoicism teaches us to judge not by speech but by action. If a person's words dazzle but their actions disappoint, believe what you see, not what you're told. Ask questions. Be bold in seeking clarity. Set boundaries like stone walls. Honesty is more than a moral preference. It's a mirror of integrity. And when someone refuses to be honest, despite the damage they cause, you owe it to your peace to walk away. In the end, Stoic wisdom reminds us, true strength isn't found in controlling others. It lies in mastering ourselves, in choosing to live by principles that protect our clarity, dignity, and peace. So when you meet someone who lies without shame or pause, hold the line, stay rooted in reality, and never let their chaos become your truth. Third, the hidden power of manipulators. Seneca once observed, "He who has many fears also has many things to manipulate." That's not just a reflection, it's a red flag, a siren warning us of how fear becomes fuel for control in the hands of the wicked. Manipulators don't operate with truth or transparency. They thrive in shadows, twisting reality to serve their ends. Their weapon of choice isn't brute force, it's psychological distortion. They lie, not openly, but quietly, through calculated gestures and carefully chosen words that slowly unravel your sense of self. I once worked alongside a man named Adam. At first, I admired him. In meetings, he would sing my praises, spotlighting my work and making me feel seen. His words carried weight, and I trusted him. But something began to shift. Subtle whispers, quiet criticisms. He started pointing out minor mistakes to our supervisor, magnifying them into perceived incompetence. When I confronted him, hoping for clarity, he looked me in the eye and calmly claimed he was only trying to help me grow. The gaslighting worked. I began to question my abilities. Was I overreacting? Was I really underperforming? Bit by bit, I became dependent on his feedback, waiting for his approval to feel competent. That's the chilling brilliance of manipulation. It doesn't come at you with sirens and flashing lights. It seeps in, quietly eroding your confidence until you forget who you were before the strings wrapped around you. Manipulators don't seek connection. They seek control. They study your doubts like a blueprint and exploit your insecurities. Like levers, they position themselves as the only one who understands you, the only one you can rely on. But beneath that facade lies a desire to dominate, not support. Stoic philosophy offers a shield against this darkness. It teaches that the path to freedom begins with clarity and discipline of the mind. A truly virtuous person doesn't try to keep you dependent. They guide you towards strength, self-reliance, and freedom. If someone in your life constantly dismisses your boundaries, ignores your autonomy, or pressures you to conform to their version of reality, it's a sign, one you cannot ignore. As Epictetus so wisely said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You don't need to shout, explain, or win them over. You only need to step out of their game. Reclaim your thoughts, reclaim your choices. Let your mind be your sanctuary, guarded by clarity and truth. Because real strength isn't about following the loudest voice in the room. It's about trusting the quiet knowing within you and refusing to hand it over to anyone else. Fourth, the puppet master. How evil seeks to own your mind. For a truly malicious person, control isn't just a desire, it's their oxygen. It's not merely a habit they fall into. It's the very foundation of how they survive. They don't want cooperation. They want dominion over your relationships, your decisions, even your internal thoughts. Their goal is simple, yet sinister: to make you doubt yourself so thoroughly that you become dependent on their direction. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. But those with dark intentions seek to sever that very realization. Why? Because they know if they can shape your thoughts, they can own your life. I once trusted someone named Clara, a colleague who seemed wise and supportive. Her suggestions were always framed as helpful advice, and at first I appreciated her guidance, but with time the tone shifted. She began slipping comments into conversations that quietly undermined my confidence. When I expressed excitement about leading a high-profile project, she smiled gently and said, "I'm not sure you're ready for something that intense just yet. Why don't I handle it for now?" At the moment, it felt like support. In hindsight, it was sabotage cloaked in concern. I gave in. I let her take the lead. And just like that, I gave her power over something I had worked years to earn. People like Clara don't stop at influencing your actions. They aim to colonize your thoughts. They'll use guilt, subtle criticism, and false flattery as tools of mental warfare. Over time, you begin questioning every decision. Your independence shrinks. Your worth becomes a reflection of their approval. But here's the truth. No one who truly values you will try to control you. As Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. And that freedom begins within. It begins by asking a simple yet powerful question. Does this relationship align with my values? If the answer is no, it's time to draw a line. Your mind is sacred ground. It's not for rent, not for conquest, and definitely not for manipulation. Marcus Aurelius also reminded us the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So guard those thoughts. Protect your inner clarity. Don't let anyone else write your narrative. True allies empower you to stand tall, think freely, and grow into your own strength, not shrink to fit into theirs. In the end, those who seek to control you fear one thing most: your freedom. So stand your ground, own your voice, and let your mind lead you to the life that's truly yours. Fifth, the victim mask. When blame becomes a weapon, Seneca once reflected that people often prefer trust over judgment, and it is precisely this noble instinct, our desire to believe in others, that manipulators weaponize. They don't stumble into blame, they master it, they rehearse it. They turn accountability into a game they never intend to lose. Instead of taking ownership for their mistakes, they twist reality, painting themselves as the perpetual victim. Their favorite move, pointing the finger at anyone but themselves. With chilling ease, they dodge the truth and cast others into the role of scapegoat, all while maintaining a polished smile or a tone of false humility. As Seneca also said, the truth stands firm without justification, while lies require elaborate stories to sustain them. These people live in those stories. They construct tangled webs where responsibility always lands at someone else's feet. I once worked closely with a friend named Elena on a project that meant a lot to both of us. Things began to unravel. Deadlines slipped, miscommunications piled up. But instead of facing it head-on, Elena began to chip away at me subtly. "Maybe your system isn't detailed enough," she'd say, with a sympathetic tilt of her head. At first, I welcomed the feedback. But over time, I noticed a pattern. Whenever something failed, her fingerprints disappeared, and my name was the one whispered in meetings. This wasn't feedback, it was strategic deflection. And the worst part? Her tone was always calm, always, cloaked in a veil of concern. That's how expert deflectors operate. They manipulate your empathy. They use your integrity against you. These individuals are skilled illusionists. They distort facts, play on your guilt, and warp your trust, until you begin to question your own memory, your intentions, even your worth. But the truth, it doesn't shift with shadows. It doesn't tremble when questioned. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that the truth stands on its own, and when you're tangled in someone else's blame game, the only way out is clarity, emotional and factual. Ground yourself in what is verifiable. Ask hard questions. Examine patterns. When the same person is always the victim and you're always the problem, it's not coincidence, it's a script. To protect your peace, you must set immovable boundaries. Don't be drawn into their psychological theater. When they attempt to rewrite reality, stay rooted in yours. Refuse to engage in circular justifications or emotionally charged accusations. Stand tall in your integrity. True strength is not found in arguing back, but in recognizing manipulation and refusing to play along. Accountability and honesty are the hallmarks of character. And when someone repeatedly shows you that those qualities are absent, believe them. Your role is not to fix their story. Your role is to walk away from the stage. Sixth, the silent void, when empathy is nowhere to be found. Seneca once wisely observed that human beings are not meant to live for themselves alone. We are, by nature, social creatures. It's not just shared space that binds us, but shared emotion. Empathy is the invisible bridge that connects one soul to another, allowing us to rejoice in each other's triumphs and carry the weight of each other's sorrows. It is the heartbeat of human connection. But for those with malicious intent, that bridge is never built. In their world, people are not fellow travelers on life's path. They are tools, tokens, pawns in a self-centered game. Their interest in your joy or suffering is purely transactional. They offer sympathy only when it suits them, and if your pain doesn't benefit them, they turn away, or worse, they smile silently in the shadow of your suffering. A lack of empathy is not a small flaw. It is not an awkward quirk. It is a red warning flare signaling a hollow and disconnected soul. Picture this. You're seated across from someone you've trusted. You open your heart, speak your truth, and let your vulnerability show. You're seeking understanding, support. Just someone to sit with you in your moment of heaviness. But instead of meeting your pain with compassion, they shrug. Or worse, they deflect with, "Oh, you think that's bad? Let me tell you about my day." The conversation is hijacked. Your sorrow is minimized. Your need is brushed aside like a fallen leaf. This isn't a one-off. It's a pattern, one that reveals the emotional bankruptcy of someone who cannot or will not step beyond their own narrow experience. Their emotional detachment is not passive. It often turns cruel. They may mock, ignore, or even find perverse satisfaction in the misfortunes of others. Where there should be comfort, there is a void. Where warmth should live, there is only coldness. Empathy is not a luxury. It is not a pleasant addition to relationships. It is the core of them. Without empathy, interactions become lopsided. One person gives, the other takes. One bleeds, the other watches. Over time, these emotionally one-sided exchanges leave you drained, confused, and questioning your worth. The most dangerous part? Some of these people know how to mimic compassion. They wear it like a costume, pulling it out when it wins them favor or advantage. But when the mask slips, their true indifference is unmistakable. Marcus Aurelius offered timeless advice. Don't argue about what a good person should be. just be one. So how do you respond when someone reveals this emptiness? First, you set boundaries, firm, non-negotiable ones. Protect your inner peace like sacred ground. Do not let their inability to feel become the reason you begin to doubt your own feelings. Surround yourself with those who see you, not just look at you. People who celebrate your joys without jealousy and who don't flinch from your sorrows. Choose relationships built on mutual respect, care, and shared humanity. The ones that restore you, not reduce you, because true connection, the kind that heals, uplifts, and strengthens, cannot exist without empathy, and you deserve nothing less. Seventh, the cruel power of isolation. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Human beings are born to help one another." Our strength, he believed, doesn't come from dominance or solitude, but from shared experience, our ability to unite, to support, and to rise together. Connection isn't just comforting, it's vital. It grounds us, it protects us, it heals us. But for the truly malicious, connection is a threat, and they know that the quickest way to seize control over someone is to slowly, subtly sever those lifelines, one by one. Isolation is their silent weapon, and they wield it with terrifying precision. I remember a time when I had a friend, let's call her Jenna, who came into my life with warmth and attentiveness. She seemed like a true confidant, someone who genuinely cared. But slowly, she began to plant little seeds of doubt. Are you sure your best friend really supports you? Your family just doesn't get you like I do. At first, these remarks felt protective, like she was looking out for me. But over time they grew sharper, more frequent, and before I knew it, I had started pulling away from the people who had been my anchor for years. She wasn't just giving her opinion. She was isolating me, strategically, quietly, completely. That's how these manipulators work. They aren't loud or obvious. They chip away at your trust in others, whispering doubts until you're emotionally adrift, disconnected from your loved ones, your roots, and even your own judgment. When you're alone, you're easier to mold, easier to guilt, easier to control. And make no mistake, this isn't care. It's control dressed up in concern. It's manipulation wearing the mask of intimacy. But here's what they don't want. You to remember your strength does not come from them. It never did. Your strength lies in the arms of those who have stood with you in storms. It's in the voices that lift you up, not tear others down. It's in the relationships that don't need to isolate you in order to value you. If you find yourself slowly cut off from those who matter, if you feel increasingly alone or suspicious of people you once trusted, pause, reflect. That isolation might not be accidental. It might be a trap. Reach out to those who've walked with you through pain and joy. Reconnect with your roots. Because when you're surrounded by people who truly love you, manipulation loses its grip. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we are never meant to journey through life alone. We are part of something greater, a community, a shared humanity. Authentic relationships are the soil where our resilience grows. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Guard your circle, nurture your connections, and remember, real love doesn't divide, it gathers. Eighth, disguised jealousy. Jealousy is a quiet predator. It doesn't always come with scowls or confrontation. Sometimes it smiles sweetly, it nods in approval. It cloaks itself in what seems like care, all while sinking its claws into your confidence. As Seneca once wrote, envy is the ulcer of the soul, and for those who harbor it, their compliments are often knives sheathed in velvet. The most dangerous form of envy is the one that hides behind the mask of goodwill, when someone claims to support you, but their words tell a different story. Not in volume or violence, but in tone, in timing, and in the subtle way they chip away at your self-worth. I once had a friend, let's call her Monica, who always seemed supportive of my dreams. After I completed a huge project I had poured my heart into, she smiled and said, "That's great, but next time maybe aim even higher. You don't want to plateau too soon." At first it sounded like motivation, but the more I replayed it, the more I felt that sting, that it wasn't meant to inspire but to undermine. A compliment laced with quiet contempt, a pat on the back followed by a whisper that said, "You're not enough." And that's the trick. These individuals won't openly tear you down. They'll gently question your success, subtly shift the spotlight, or compare you to someone who did it even better. They'll say things like, "You crushed it, but don't get too confident," or "That was amazing, though I heard Sarah did it in half the time." These aren't motivators, they're silencers. They're small doses of poison meant to make you doubt your own brilliance, until eventually you start dimming your light just to make others feel more comfortable in the shadows. Envy cannot celebrate your shine because it reveals what they lack within themselves. They can't stand your growth because it forces them to face their own stagnation. And so, instead of elevating themselves, they try to shrink you. But Stoic wisdom teaches us to trust what we feel in our gut. If something about their support feels off, it probably is. Listen closely to the tone behind the praise. Watch what follows their flattery. Are they lifting you, or subtly lowering your ceiling? A truly kind person celebrates you without caveat. They cheer without comparison. They want to see you win, not because it benefits them, but because they love the sound of your happiness. So set boundaries with those who wrap envy in advice. Protect your inner fire. Keep company with people who fuel your ascent, not those who resent it. You were never meant to dim your light for anyone. Stand tall, shine bright, and never apologize for the glow you've earned. Ninth, when pain becomes their pleasure. There's something deeply unsettling, almost inhuman about a person who finds joy in the suffering of others. It's not just disturbing, it's dangerous. Epictetus once advised us to associate with those who make you better. But the people we speak of here don't want to elevate you. They don't want growth. They don't want connection. What they crave is control, achieved through your pain. For these individuals, cruelty is currency, and their delight in another's downfall often reveals itself in subtle, almost dismissible ways. A sarcastic chuckle when someone stumbles, a smirk when a colleague fails, a glint of satisfaction when someone else's dreams collapse. It may start with a joke, a comment, or a quiet shrug at someone else's misfortune, but it's never harmless. It's calculated. I once knew a woman named Eliza who had a curious habit of amplifying others' failures. One day, a co-worker was publicly scolded by our supervisor for a minor error. While most of us sat in awkward silence, Eliza let out a soft, amused laugh. At first I chalked it up to nerves, but as time passed, her pattern became unmistakable. She thrived when others floundered. She didn't just notice mistakes. She collected them, showcased them, and somehow used them to paint herself in a better light. This kind of behavior doesn't come from strength. It stems from deep insecurity. People like Eliza don't build themselves through discipline or integrity. They build themselves atop the brokenness of others, feeding off the emotional debris of those they quietly destroy. They gossip, they sabotage, they degrade, all in the name of feeling a little more powerful in a world where they feel small. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." But for the malicious, adversity isn't something to overcome. It's something to weaponize. They don't grow through hardship, they project it. They don't heal wounds, they create them. And if you're around someone who delights in suffering, know this: their laughter is not harmless, and their attention is not flattering. Every moment you spend under their gaze is a moment your self-worth is chipped away. Your joy becomes their target. Your peace becomes their battlefield. Stoic wisdom teaches us to guard our inner world fiercely, to surround ourselves with people who don't just tolerate our growth, but celebrate it. People who encourage us when we fall, not whisper about it. People who shine with us, not in our shadows. So take inventory. Pay attention to how they react when you're doing well or when someone else is struggling. Do they lean in with support or pull back with contempt? Because true joy, lasting joy, is never built on the suffering of others. It's built in shared laughter, genuine love, and the kind of relationships that leave your soul lighter, not heavier. Choose those who uplift, and walk away from those who mock pain as if it were a joke. 10th, the unrepentant heart. One of the most chilling signs that you're in the presence of true darkness isn't rage, it isn't violence, it's something quieter, colder, and far more dangerous. A heart that refuses to repent, a heart that clings to its wrongs like armor, never bending, never breaking, and never seeking redemption. Marcus Aurelius once advised us not to waste time in endless debates about what makes a good person, but instead to be one. Yet those with unrepentant hearts take the opposite path. They don't strive to be better. They defend their flaws as if they were virtues. They double down on damage and wear denial like a badge of honor. Think about someone you've known. Someone who always had a clever excuse for every cruel remark, every betrayal, every injury they caused. When they hurt others, they'd shift blame to fate, circumstances, or to you. And if you ever tried to express how their actions affected you, they'd scoff. Maybe they accused you of being too sensitive. Or worse, they flipped the story, casting themselves as the victim while painting you as irrational or overly emotional. To them, accountability is weakness. Apologies are defeat. And change, that's not even on their radar. What they truly fear is the mirror. They cannot and will not face themselves. And so, they walk through life, leaving cracks in people without ever stopping to wonder what broke. This mindset is a direct contradiction to everything the Stoics held sacred. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius alike taught that strength lies not in stubbornness, but in the courage to evolve, self-reflection, accountability, the willingness to make things right. These are not signs of weakness. They are the very marks of wisdom and emotional maturity. But when someone consistently avoids growth, justifies their every flaw, and rejects even the smallest step toward change, you must pause and protect yourself. Not everyone is on the path of becoming. Some choose to remain fixed, unmoving stones that crush everything beneath them. Let go of the illusion that your love, patience, or understanding will thaw a frozen soul. You are not the cure for someone who refuses to admit they're sick. Surround yourself instead with people who want to grow. People who confront their mistakes, people who rise after falling and help you rise too. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to focus your mind on thoughts and people who elevate the quality of your life, and that truly is the key. As we've journeyed through these 10 undeniable signs that there may be someone evil near you, I hope you feel more aware, more empowered, because awareness is your armor. Recognition is your shield, and clarity is your compass. Remember, these people only thrive when we don't see them clearly. Once you do, you take back your peace, you silence their chaos, you master your mind, and that's the strength they fear the most. So set your boundaries, guard your light, and if this message spoke to you, let the world know. Comment, "I see the signs." Subscribe and stand tall. Your clarity is rising, and your wisdom is only beginning to grow.